Will Dewey be back for Scream 6? Let's get into it.
What's your favorite scary movie? Amen.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Well, I'm Pennywise the dancing now.
Oh, Lord on the beast!
God, don't do that.
But sometimes death is better.
Hey everybody, what's up? KillJoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Today we're talking about if Dewey Riley will return for Scream 6, even though we have known him as to be dead at this point. But before I get into that, I'm gonna need y'all to like this video and subscribe for more horror content. Alright, so getting into this. Speaking with Empire for the June 2022 issue discussing his time portraying the life of Dewey Riley in all the Scream movies, David Arquette was asked if he'd return for the 6th installment, and he said this: Dewey's gone. I mean, you never know. There's the multiverse, but I don't think Dewey would appear in a multiverse. Could you imagine if, like, the ending of Scream 7 is, like, Spider-Man No Way Home and, like, all the Deweys from different dimensions just came together to fight, like, an army of ghost faces? Yeah, no, I would never want to see that. I don't think any Scream fan would want to see that movie. That would suck. But seriously, something to consider here. I don't know, like, let's entertain a few theories about how Dewey could come back for Scream 6. So there's this theory out there about how Dewey could still be alive. There was only one body bag that came out of the hospital that was visible in that one scene in Scream 5 where Gale Weathers breaks down and starts crying. Now, here's the thing. I think there's a lot of proof there that Dewey is dead at this point. Why would Gale Weathers just break down and start crying if she didn't see some kind of evidence of her husband dead at this point? I feel like maybe if he wasn't dead and like they were rushing him into surgery, they would have clarified that with her. I mean, obviously I know they're not like together anymore, but like you think that the doctors would say something to her. She was at that hospital for a while, it seems like. So I just feel like there's also a lot more, like they actually even say at the ending, like, you killed our friend, like Sydney and Gale say that. There's a lot of evidence that would suggest that Dewey is dead at this point. It would be kind of weird if they brought him back. So I don't think that he's alive, which sucks. And trust me, I would love to have him come back. That would be fun. That would be great. He's a great character, but like literally the guy's guts fell out of him onto the ground. There's no way they're pushing that back in and everything's gonna be okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's really upsetting, but like, I just don't think that's gonna happen. It's also for me, I'm gonna keep going on this argument about how important it was to kill Dewey. Like, it's something that had to happen. We are now once again in suspense, especially if this next movie is gonna be all about Gale Weathers, if any more legacy characters are going to die or not. It's thrilling, it's crazy, and it's once again bringing us back to the early days of Scream, like Screams 1 and 2, where you thought, okay, these beloved characters, are they gonna die in the sequel? And one of them did, and it was scary. It was like, oh my god, that sucks. Randy died, and it's like, I wanted that character to live. He was so good. But because of that, it keeps it fresh. It keeps it like, okay, I don't know who's gonna die at this point. And we've gotten to a point with this franchise, especially with the fourth one, kind of like being that last nail in the coffin, saying these three characters are safe no matter what. They will not die. They will always give the thumbs up at the ending. And that's just kind of like it. Anytime there's any chase scene with any of those characters, you will not have any sort of suspense because you know they're probably going to give the thumbs up right at the ending, and it's like, what's the point of even watching this scene? Now moving forward, if you have any chase scene with Gale Weathers or Sidney Prescott, if she's in the next movie, it's going to be thrilling again. We don't know if she's gonna die or not. And without that, if you have this like safety, if you have this like safety blanket of like, okay, well, these are the legacy characters, they're fine. It's not scary anymore. There's nothing thrilling about that. If you know that they're not going to die, why even show us a chase scene? Why even have them in the movie? Now, this all could be one sick joke from Radio Silence and David Arquette. Maybe they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes, and like maybe Dewey comes back in the next one, gives the thumbs up. He's like, oh yeah, I was fine. You know, a little bit of organs came out of me. I don't need them. Who needs the small intestine anyways? And he's just totally fine, back to normal after like a couple years of recovery or some bullshit. Which, I'm not gonna lie, as much as I think Dewey dying was important, I would find that hilarious, and it would be hard to argue against that scene. It would be really hard for me to argue against that choice, just because of how hilarious that joke would be. Considering that, like, it Screams 2 and 3 is where he gives the thumbs up and he's totally fine, as well as in 1. So it's just like, if they did do that, it would be a really good meta callback to the original, and it would be hard for me to be upset with that if they ended up going that route. But once again, I genuinely don't think that's the case here. But how could they bring Dewey back realistically? I think since this movie is rumored, just a rumor as of right now, to be focused on Gale Weathers, if that was the case, I think it would make a lot of sense to have some flashbacks with Dewey in New York City, like how they tried to make their relationship work and maybe it didn't. And maybe this Ghostface killer has something to do with their relationship not working. We could have set up something in Scream 5 that is going to come back to be massive in Scream 6, and I think that actually might be the case here. We could do flashbacks to like New York City, they're living in this nice apartment together, Dewey and Gale, and then maybe something like maybe there's someone getting in the middle of all this between Gale and Dewey, kind of like a Judy Hicks situation, and maybe just Dewey has to leave. He's like, I'm thinking about Woodsboro too much, I can't be here, and he leaves, and maybe Gale blames it on whoever this person is. Maybe there's more to the story than we know. And maybe that person ends up becoming Ghostface in Scream 6, comes back to try to kill Gale Weathers, get revenge. Dewey Riley was mine. It could be like the Scream 4 a lot of us thought it was going, thought that was going to be the route it took, but it didn't, because Judy Hicks obviously did not end up being a Ghostface killer. But imagine if she did. That could be what Scream 6 could be, and also having this Gale Weather focus, which would make it interesting and different. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not either, but I'll tell you what, I feel like there was a massive missed opportunity in Scream 5 to do some flashback scenes to that original movie that would have just been so much cooler than Force Ghost Billy. I do, like, listen, it's tough for me to complain about more Skeet Ulrich in my Scream movies. I mean, he reprised one of the coolest psycho killer villains of all time in any horror movie. So it's like, it's tough for me to complain about that, but I feel like they could have done it better. And why I say that is because what if you did some flashback scenes to Billy and Stu talking like behind the scenes between all the killings, maybe at the party scene, maybe in school, something along those lines. You could have them going back and forth talking about the situations that happened in that original movie, and we could view them entirely differently based off of what their conversation would have been. I think it could have led into the reveal about Billy being Sam's daughter, and maybe you could have had that reveal take place when the Stu's house reveal happened, because that wasn't really a reveal. They showed us all those behind the scenes pictures of 261 Turner Lane, and it's just like we knew we were going there at some point in this movie, and a lot of us predicted it correctly that it would be the third act setting. They tried to make it seem like it was this monumental surprise, and it just wasn't compared to like the Billy Loomis drop towards the beginning of the film. I think what they should have done is, yeah, sure, have that be the third act setting, because that's cool. Stu Macher's house, I think, is pretty sick. I think maybe the whole kitchen scene was a bit too close to the original movie, but besides that, I love that entire sequence. The third act is pretty fun overall, and I love the reveals. It's all pretty done pretty well. But what they should have done is waited for the reveal about Sam's dad being Billy illegitimately. Save that for the third act, because that was one of the biggest reveals of the entire movie, and they gave it to us like right in the end of the first act pretty much. It was like, that was a weird place to put that. So if you would have been building it up the entire movie by showing us Billy and Stu flashbacks, and then bam, right at the beginning of the third act, you get that drop, it could have been a massive red herring. You could have been like, oh my god, Sam's the killer, but then of course she's not. That would have been really cool if they would have set it up that way. So maybe with this next film, you could do that though. You could show us a bunch of flashback scenes, and the entire time we're like, why are we seeing this? Like, this is awesome that Dewey's back. This is great, but why are we seeing this? Where is this leading? And then it leads into who the killer is, or setting up a red herring. One or the other. And either way, we'd be getting Dewey back in a natural way that doesn't make no sense for him to return. Because like, it just wouldn't make any sense for him to come back at this point. I mean, if you think that dropping a TV on Stu's head would be ridiculous for him to then come back from that death, I mean, this is even more ridiculous. Dewey is an older gentleman, and I love him to death. He's one of my favorite characters, but if he was just to come back after everything that's happened at this point, after basically being confirmed to be dead, no, it was not something that a doctor never came on screen and was like, Dewey Riley, the guy who has been in the past 5 movies, is dead. That never happens. But there's a lot of context clues to believe that he did die, and he's not coming back. So for him to naturally come back in a way that would make more sense, I feel like flashbacks, it's just way more organic that way. You could tell a story about like something between him and Gale, while also setting up who the new killer is, or setting up a massive red herring, and you're bringing Dewey back. Are we going to complain about that? No, I want to see Dewey. That would be awesome. So flashbacks are the way to go in my opinion, but what do you guys think? Should Dewey even come back? Do you just not want him to come back at this point? Or is it not a Scream film without him? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this new Scream 6 update. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content. Also, if you want to support this channel further, I currently have a channel memberships, which you can join on that, and it's the exact same thing over on Patreon, depending on where you want to go. So check out either of those options. And you get to see an extra video every single week. I review different movies that you guys request to me, and also you'll be, if you support me at some of the higher tiers, you'll be seeing behind the scenes info on Red Right Hand. You might learn a little more than everybody else about the film. So thank you all again for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.